YouTube, how's it going? The Goat House is back with some more rankings for the NFL 2020 season. This is my favorite one so far. Best defensive big fives in football. What does that mean? It means you take a defensive lineman, a pass rusher, a linebacker, a corner, and a safety, and we evaluate and pick which teams are the best in that category. So the big five of defenses heading in the 2020 season. I have been ranking 10 in these ranking videos plus one sleeper. This video actually did 12 plus one sleeper because I had some sort of a grading system, and it turned out that there was a clear 12 or 13 teams there that led the way. So I kind of felt weird leaving some out. Once we rank complete units, defenses, offenses, and players by position, we will do a full 32 for those. Those are upcoming still this offseason. Please subscribe if you haven't already, trying to reach that next goal, which let's make it 100K by a year from now. I know that we're a long ways away, but we went from 10 to 50K, in just under a year. So I really appreciate the support. We have a second channel, more coming to that in the future, some different content coming to that, trying to get some things sorted out there, get both these channels linked together. So please subscribe to both. If you already do, really appreciate you. Follow that Twitter. We got NFL updates, talk, Goat House updates, and talk, and then we keep you guys involved with podcasts and videos for the future. So you're going to want to follow that, and then check out the podcast. More podcast episodes on the way. A link in the description and comments for any of that on the screen right there that you need. It'll be below on every single video. Let's start with the sleeper. Before the top 12, the sleeper team for Big Five, defensive Big Five, the Arizona Cardinals, who is kind of known as maybe one of the lower tier defenses recently, but they're really turning things around here. So you look at the five position groups here. We're going through their best defense lineman, expected to be Jordan Phillips. Somebody else perhaps could step up, but Jordan Phillips had a career year with the Bills last year. Chandler Jones, clearly one of the better pass rushers in all of football. So that obviously they're really good in that category. Isaiah Simmons, a rookie, hasn't played yet, but again, we are predicting this upcoming season basically with these videos. Isaiah Simmons might just be the best all-around linebacker prospect I have ever seen. I expect this guy to be an elite linebacker pretty early in his career there. Patrick Peterson, maybe it's tough to call him elite. We know the elite talent is back there somewhere. It's there. But we haven't really seen a whole bunch of them recently. And we haven't really been sure if he wanted to be there or not. I think the defense starting to take shape. I think he's happy. And then Budda Baker, who's been a very solid safety for them, seems like a sure tackler for them, and it seems like he's getting better every season. So a pretty complete group here. Need to see more from Jordan Phillips. Need to see something from Isaiah Simmons at the next level. So maybe if you had to split hairs there, maybe those guys kind of weigh him down and keep him outside of the top 12. But a very solid group, which is crazy to think for the Cardinals, but they're heading in the right direction. On to the top 12. A lot of these teams, a lot of these units, Big Five units, very close. Very close what's splitting them up. Barely anything's been splitting them up. Number 12 is going to be the Indianapolis Colts, another defense. Maybe one of those defenses that have been really good one week and then really disappointing the next week. It's really starting to take shape here. DeForest Buckner, they trade for one of the better defensive linemen in football, and they've been missing that interior defensive line help, and that's what they get here with DeForest Buckner, big time. Justin Houston, maybe not the same as he once was, still a very solid pass rusher, their best one. Maybe one of those young guys can step up. Kamoko Toure, Ben Benogu, one of those guys could possibly step up perhaps, but Houston I expect to be their best pass rusher. Darius Leonard, obviously one of the better linebackers in football. So guys like Leonard and Buckner is what gets them in this list, and not really having a giant weak spot. Some teams either have, they have one star, a couple stars, and then big weak spots. The Colts are pretty balanced. Kenny Moore needs to stay healthy, and he's a slot corner. You wish you had an outside corner on this list because those are a little important, but don't underestimate the slot corners. Very tough job there, and there's very few good ones. Kenny Moore is a good one. Malik Hooker, it's another tough spot. Maybe why they're at 12 and not top 10 is because Malik Hooker's good. I mean, that guy's a playmaker, very talented, has upside, just keeps getting injured, and it almost feels like they're starting to get ready to replace him. So that's the tough part. Buckner and Leonard and having no giant holes in the Big Five, that's what keeps the Colts on the list. But yeah, some spots maybe weigh them down a little bit, but they make the cut. So they're obviously, I think they're pretty good here. Number 11 is going to be the Saints, and the Saints are a tough one because really at the top there, Sheldon Rankins. I love Sheldon Rankins' game. This guy might be their X factor. Why? Because when he's in the game, they get interior pressure. He stops the run. He's still got upside. He's improving every time he plays. But it just seems like he's just getting hurt at some point every single year now, among other guys in the defensive line. So I need to see him stay healthy and take that next step. Hopefully this guy can stay healthy. If he's healthy, I can feel a little better about the Saints. And, like I said, something very small is splitting up some of these teams, 11, 10, 9, then I can easily move them up. If Rankins, he's the key to this defense, I feel like. I really do. His talent, people kind of forget his talent just because we're kind of used to him getting injured maybe. But again, I still have upside. I want to see him stay healthy, and I want to see more. Keep improving. Cameron Jordan, obviously one of the better pass rushers in football, pretty consistent as well. Demario Davis had a career last year. Let's see if he can continue that. That was a very good season. Coverage is kind of what stood out because we expect the run-stopping ability, the range from him, but coverage was very impressive. Marshawn Lattimore is a guy that I think the world's higher on than I am. It seems like every year, first 3, 4, 5 weeks starts off very strong. It just seems like the same thing every year, then kind of goes downhill. I need to see more consistency from Marshawn Lattimore. I need to see him take that next step. Marcus Williams was a guy I was very high on in Utah, and we start to see him ball out now. Last year, I think, was kind of that statement year for him. Okay, he can play. Don't label him on that one playoff play a couple years ago. The guy can play. So he's continuing to get better. So a pretty balanced group. I want to see Rankin stay healthy. I want to see Lattimore be consistent throughout the whole year. So the Saints make it to number 11. Or number 10 is going to be the Chargers. Some big names in this group. And this is another tough one to choose, actually, the player. Because I start at the top. Defensive lineman Jerry Tillery. That's a guy they drafted in the first round of Notre Dame last year. Speaking of Notre Dame, the Chargers just love. It feels like they love Notre Dame defensive players. Something I realized. There's guys all over the place. It's pretty weird. But, there's some good players. But something I noticed. But Jerry Tillery, it's kind of more the pass rush from the interior. And obviously can stop the run as well, but you're going to get some extra pressure from the interior, and we need to see him take that next step, and I'm kind of banking on him doing so. He was a first-round pick for a reason. I believed he was rightfully a first-round pick, and I think he'll step up. Linval Joseph, who they get from the Vikings, maybe the bigger name, and a pretty dominant run stuffer in the interior defensive line, playing nose a lot, which he'll do for the Chargers. It may be easier to put him in here, but I think Tillery is more that impact guy, and you do worry about Linval Joseph. The injuries are starting to sneak up on him, and sometimes he's playing hurt, which affects him. Very tough dude. But I'm going to go Tillery. And then Bosa at the edge rush position, Joey Bosa, that is. And that's another tough one because I think Melvin Ingram has been my guy, my choice for the last few years. He does a little more than people expect. He's more than a pass rusher. I think he's the glue, the X factor of this defense. But now's the time where maybe Ingram isn't as good. He's still very good, still key. Maybe isn't as good as he once was, maybe 2-3 years ago. Bosa, now's the time. Bosa has those flashy moments. I want to see him just full go, the Bosa we expected, this year, and I think we can see that. Kenneth Murray, so you got a rookie here at linebacker that I like. I like Kenneth Murray. He still has to work on his coverage ability, but maybe that weighs him down a little bit, even though I think he'll be fine. He fits this defense perfectly. They traded up for a reason, but maybe it weighs, having guys like Tillery and Murray, and again, they made the list, I think, very highly of them, maybe a top defense, but comparing to who's next to him, 9, 8, 7, all the way to 1, maybe that's kind of the difference. But Casey Hayward, maybe not quite as good as he was a couple years ago, but still in the ballpark, a very solid corner. Then Derwin James, we haven't even seen the Derwin James we expect yet. A dominant rookie year, didn't get to see him last year. This guy very well could be, if you're predicting him to be the best safety in football, I could be on board on that. I can definitely be on board. But, we need to see that, though. We haven't quite seen it fully yet. We can see the upside in there. A guy that I'm very high on, even coming out of Florida State, so I expect a lot there. So the Chargers coming in at number 10. Number 9 is going to be the Tennessee Titans. Jeffrey Simmons was their top pick last year. We only got to see him for about half the year, and he's a pretty dominant force for them in the D-line. They're so confident with him. They traded Jarrell Casey. They're kind of their franchise piece there for such a long time. So this guy's about to break out this year. Harold Landry has been kind of breaking out, too. A guy I had a first-round grade on a couple years ago. Titans stole him in the second round. This guy's going to continue to get better, continue to get that pressure. Jayon Brown, I view as an underrated linebacker. You can really throw Rashaan Evans in here as well. They're pretty even. There's just so much to Jayon Brown's game. I think a very underrated and very much improving linebacker there. Corner was tough because I always thought Malcolm Butler was better. He still might be better today. Adoree Jackson, I expect maybe a little bit of improvement here, and you worry about, we've seen both injured actually, Butler and Jackson. You worry about the injury a little more for Malcolm Butler. So I want Adoree Jackson here. I want to see him step up this year. We still need to see Simmons, Landry, and Jackson step up, even though I like all of them. And Kevin Byard, known as one of the better safeties in football. So I think a very balanced group, and then a standout guy, Kevin Byard. I think Jeffrey Simmons very much can be a standout. Maybe even a top-tier defensive lineman early in his career. He's that good. He just had the injury. He dropped in the draft. If he didn't have that injury last year before the draft, he would have went in the top 10. The Titans would not have this guy right now, and that's a guarantee. Number 8 is going to be the Minnesota Vikings. Pretty balanced group. I think the cornerback spot is what's kind of weighing them down because they have and what brings them back up is kind of their star players, the Danielle Hunter, Eric Kendricks, Harrison Smith. We start with a new addition, Michael Pierce from the Ravens. Kind of get the fresh leg nose tackle. Linval Joseph getting in and out of games, so they kind of get the younger version there of Michael Pierce. Danielle Hunter is a top-tier pass rusher that continues to improve on the rise. Eric Kendricks off a career year. Corner, you really could go Jeff Gladney, their first-round pick here. They picked him in the first round for a reason, but Mike Hughes could take that next step, still a young, former first-round corner, and then Harrison Smith being one of the better safeties of the last several years, really. They got some studs here. They got some 3 studs that really boost them up. Maybe looking at those 3 guys that I mentioned, Hunter, Kendricks, Harrison Smith, you're thinking easily top 5, maybe top 3. Michael Pierce, solid, doesn't really weigh them down much, but maybe not matching those guys down to Mike Hughes. The cornerback is kind of the question mark. It's a question mark on who it would actually be. Like I mentioned, could be Gladney, could be Hughes, could be Holton Hill, it could be Cameron Dantzler. It's a mystery out there, so we'll see. So maybe that cornerback spot weighs them down, but they do have some studs. And they have lost a lot of guys on defense, and that could take their hit in terms of a whole defense, but you can see they still have their stars here. None of those guys are really missing, so they're pretty good in a list like this. Number 7 is going to be the Baltimore Ravens. They had Calais Campbell, a defensive lineman that can provide some pass rush there, which they kind of been lacking, so that's good to have. Matthew Judon will be their pass rusher for sure, and he's under the franchise. Obviously, they thought that somebody may trade for him. Doesn't look like it's going to happen, but that's their best pass rusher. Maybe one of the young guys can step up. Got a couple young guys that potentially could step up. Patrick Queen. So we see a rookie in here. Patrick Queen needs to prove the consistency part of his game. We see early in the year, last year, a little shaky, almost looks like he's going to be a mid-round pick, and then later in the year, look at the national championship game, it's a lock of a first-round pick. So is that him improving? Good sign. We need to see him stay more consistent, but they got a future inside linebacker there. Marcus Peters, I went with Peters over Marlon Humphrey. It's a tough battle, especially we're talking this year. Marlon Humphrey can definitely take that step because he's continuing to get better. Where he's come from last year at Alabama to now with the Ravens, he was good at Alabama, but you can see he was an upside guy. And the Ravens, Don Martindale, coaching staff there, they got him to where he needs to be, just like a totally different person, the build, the play, everything. So Marlon Humphrey definitely could take the spot. I've always been a big Marcus Peters fan. One of the higher rated corners in terms of my pre-draft grade. Just a playmaker, and I think sometimes he takes some shots. People like to give him that, but he's a very good corner. So I went with Marcus Peters, and then Earl Thomas at safety. He's still going strong there. So a pretty solid group here. Maybe why they're not a little higher. Maybe Patrick Queen is holding them down a little bit. And there's some teams with some elite pass rush. Judon very solid, but maybe not an elite in that category, which you start to look for with these top-tier teams, perhaps, unless they're stacked elsewhere. Number 6 is going to be the Buffalo Bills. And see, that's the opposite. The Bills, of what I just said, the Bills, maybe that's the spot where they're lacking a little bit. Jerry Hughes pretty solid, had maybe a little better 2-3 years ago. Pretty solid, but that's kind of the spot that, again, the top 6 were so close. Everyone's so tight. Something's got to split them up. That might be the spot. Ed Oliver's about to step up big time. That was kind of that defensive lineman that was known as raw. Like, he's going to come in. He's not going to make a huge impact right away. Why? Because Houston had him. First of all, he played at Houston. He didn't play at the top schools. But mainly, Houston had him out of position. They had the guy playing nose tackle, and he was kind of undersized for nose tackle and an athletic freak, pass rush freak freak from the interior. Wrong spot. So the Bills going to put him in the right spot, but it might take time. I thought late stretch of the season he played better than we expected right away, even though I considered him an elite prospect. I think he's really going to start to take off now, so this guy could be a top-tier defensive lineman. Jerry Hughes. Maybe it's A.J. Epinesa. It really could be. It could be. And they got Mario Addison. I'm not a huge fan, but he'll provide some pressure. It could be Epinesa. It really could be. But Hughes for now, a solid pass rusher. Tremaine Edmonds, if you were with us through that draft coverage a few years ago, Tremaine Edmonds, I'm a huge fan. And another guy that you expected, maybe he'll be solid right away. Won't be anything crazy because, he's a unique size. He's a little raw, just flies to the ball. Doesn't really have the actual knowledge of the game yet. You got to get him in the playbook a bit and learn basically the fundamentals of some things. But he took off right away. This guy's already a dominant linebacker, and we haven't even seen even close to the best of him yet. So Edmonds very well could be an elite linebacker during the season. Tre'Davious White, you'd say easy top 5 corner, maybe better. People put him right around that 3 spot, I believe, and rightfully so. So Tre'Davious White helps the case. Tough one, safety. Jordan Poyer, Micah Hyde. Jordan Poyer, Micah Hyde. Which one you want to go with? I think most of the world actually might go Hyde, and he's very solid. I'm more of a Poyer guy. It's back and forth. Maybe a little, because I was always high on Poyer out of Oregon State. I had him graded way higher than he went. I always thought he was kind of underrated, doubted a little bit, and he does everything at a high level. He's not going to miss tackles. He's not going to blow coverages, all around the field. So I like me some Jordan Poyer here. This is a very balanced group here for the Bills. The pass rush could be a little better. We're on to the top 5, and we already see, the Bills are a very good group even at 6. Number 5 is going to be the Pittsburgh Steelers. See, we're starting to get to these loaded big 5s here. Cameron Hayward, a well-known top-tier defensive lineman. Once was a sure elite. Everyone would call him for sure elite. Kind of borderline right now, possibly in terms of his position. T.J. Watt is definitely, in that category of elite for sure. Really, he's impressed me. That's a guy that I did not expect to be as good as he is at this moment. I thought another guy that would take some time to develop there, but he's impressive is not even the right word. It's crazy what he's able to do so far. Devin Bush was a top-tier linebacker prospect a year ago for a reason. They traded up super high to get him for a reason. He had a really good rookie year. He's about to step up even further. Joe Hayden, pretty impressive year. I think the pass rush kind of helps him. So maybe a guy we can start to expect a little bit of a decline, but again, if you have to split things up, why number 4 is going to be ahead of them, maybe Joe Hayden's, holding them down a little bit, but he's still a very solid corner. Minka Fitzpatrick, a guy that I like, and a very impressive season. Definitely want to see more of him as well. See if he can repeat that, but in a very impressive season, a very impressive defense from the Steelers. Number 4 is going to be the Green Bay Packers here. Kenny Clark, who I view is arguably probably the top nose tackle in football. We'll say 3-4 top nose tackle in football here in Kenny Clark. He kind of controls that defensive line by himself up there. Dominant. First he will stop the run like a nose tackle is supposed to do, but he'll provide some pressure as well. I think he's a little underrated on the underrated side as well. Speaking of underrated, Zadarius Smith. If you guys have been following this channel, I'm a big Zadarius Smith guy. Was my defensive MVP pick last year, and I didn't really have to think about it. He provides the pass rush. He does so much more. I always liked the Melvin Ingram type of guy, and Zadarius Smith's kind of a new version of that. Why? Because he helps the rest of the team. Led the league and created sacks for the rest of his team. This is rushes from anywhere on the field. He's a very impressive player here. Even though it's only been 1 year where I'm that impressed with him, I don't see it going away. I'm almost ready to call him almost an elite player. Obviously, you want to see more. Christian Kirksey, so maybe this is where they take a little bit of a hit. Kirksey's a very solid linebacker. We just haven't seen a whole bunch of him recently. He's had the injuries. So I think he, in terms of his talent, from the past, probably an upgrade over Blake Martinez, but will we see him as much as Blake Martinez? That's kind of the question. But a very solid line, but that's probably what's weighing him down from being in the top 3. The big 4 around Kirksey is really good. Jair Alexander is a young cornerback on the rise. I've been a big fan of him since Louisville. The first time I seen him play, I knew this guy was going to be special. A playmaker at the corner position, and can be very physical despite, maybe you would think how physical is, his measurables would be a little bigger, but a very impressive corner. And Adrian Amos, another, very solid safety. They add him to the mix. And maybe Darnell Savage can take the spot, but I like Amos much better there. And we've seen the difference of the Bears with and without Amos too. Eddie Jackson's play. Amos is a key piece there as a strong safety. So It's a pretty good group. Yeah, maybe the linebacker spot's weighing them down from being top three, but that other four really, really stands out. Number 3 is going to be the San Francisco 49ers. Maybe cheating the system a little bit here because Eric Armstead is both a defensive end and an interior defense line. You know, we see him play defensive end, but they kind of have that Leo defense. One side, Nick Bosa is a defensive end. Armstead's technically a defensive end on the other side, but then D Ford is the pass rusher right behind Armstead. So he's a little more inside than you will see a Nick Bosa. So technically you can consider him an edge or a defensive line. I like his play getting interior pressure inside D Ford. I consider him a defensive lineman. It's a player on the rise. Perfectly fits that role. They basically chose Armstead over Buckner for that reason. You can find it. It's going to be tough to find that talent level, but you can find another Buckner. Armstead is too unique for them. Nick Bosa, a dominant rookie season, continuing to get better. Would not be surprising at all. A top-tier pass rusher already. Fred Warner. You could go Quan Alexander. Maybe right this second as we talk Quan Alexander. Maybe more knowledge and just better possibly. But he has the injury. Fred Warner, I think very well could be known as for sure better as the season goes on because he is a linebacker that's on the rise. Today's type of linebacker, very rangy and athletic, very good in coverage. Richard Sherman, another standout year. I think the supporting cast really helps him, but another really good season for him. Still considered a lockdown corner. Then Jimmy Ward, who is a free safety they get back here. I think a career year. He had some dominant weeks where he looked like a top-tier safety. The Super Bowl is one he would want back. That's going against the Chiefs offense, but very solid season. I'm glad they brought him back. I think Tavarius Moore would have been the replacement. He, maybe some good upside, but just it would have been a hit. It would have been a hit there. But you could go Jaquiski Tartt. He made some. It felt like Tartt came up pretty big. Some crazy turnovers. Clutch ones. So you could go that route as well. Run out of the top two, the big two here. Barely anything splitting these guys up. I was pretty firm on my number 1 though. I think like 2-3. Was pretty much a tie. The Denver Broncos will be number 2. They add Jarrell Casey, kind of that Titans franchise piece we talked about earlier in this video. Very impressive dude. Let's see if he's still got some enough in the tank. I think he's got enough to be there. You could go Shelby. I loved Shelby Harris last year. That guy was dominant. So either one. Casey's been better. Shelby Harris can be going forward. Either one, I'm fine with it. They remain at 2 there, but Casey's been he's built like a nose tackle almost, but he stops the run. But he doesn't really play nose. I think he can, but he gets a lot of pressure, more than you think for a big boy there. Von Miller, one of the best pass rushers in football. We don't really need to see more there. I think he actually steps up this year. Kind of not really bold. With Bradley Chubb healthy, it makes it easier. Alexander Johnson, maybe one of the more underrated players, even though we only seen him 1 year. This is one, I don't know if I want to say my favorite. It's one of those guys, one of the unique players. A.J. Johnson, he played his first active year last year and was absolutely dominant all over the field. Very impressive in coverage. But why I like A.J. Johnson, not the whole world don't know about A.J. Johnson yet. Go backtrack, 2015 even before, Tennessee Volunteers. This guy was dominant. Every time I watched the tape, guys flying around the field. This was one of my guys of that draft class, or would have been. I was much higher on other people's grades. He had an off-the-field issue, actually. That you can look it up. We won't discuss it here. He got accused of something. It got cleared up years later. I mean, that was 2015. We're in 2020. He finally went undrafted because of that off-the-field issue. Finally got the chance to play. This is basically his rookie year and was outstanding. I mean, I'm going back to the tape at Tennessee. This guy can straight ball. It wasn't a fluke. Let's see him continue to get better. I'm excited about that one, Alexander Johnson. A.J. Bouye, I think, fits right back in. Maybe he can play at his abilities to where he was when we considered him a top 10 corner just a couple years ago. There's no reason for decline. The man did not decline. And now he fits right in with Vic Fangio's defense. This guy's going to play much better, especially with that supporting cast in front of him. Look what's behind him. Justin Simmons is one of the better young safeties in football. Another one of those guys I was a little higher on the draft than most people. It's just today's free safety. That center fielder. I thought he came up clutch so many times. Maybe it went unnoticed in the stat department too. Maybe just pass deflections, just breaking things up in the back end, save some touchdowns. And he's a young one, athletic one on the rise. Could be a top tier, maybe the best safety in football one day soon. Very good group. Number 1 for me, again, I was pretty firm on this. Didn't really think too much, even though these aren't too far off. But the Chicago Bears are number one. We need to see Akeem Hicks stay healthy, though. This guy had an elite season 2 years ago. I think elite. He was just absolutely dominant in terms of stopping the run first, but getting that crazy pressure. But he was unhealthy last year, and that affected the defense. Was still good because of the talent, but that affected them. It affected the defense, affected Khalil Mack, affected everyone. This might be the glue. This might be the X factor here. Khalil Mack, I think, is the best pass rusher in football. I think he's the best defensive player in football. He got doubled. I've seen him get tripled at times. He got held every play, which a lot of guys do because that's what the offensive linemen do these days, and they're getting away with it because they can. But anyways, Khalil Mack, yeah, he had a tough task last year. Didn't have Akeem Hicks. He didn't have another pass rusher opposite him. Now they get Robert Quinn, so I expect him to be even better this year as long as everyone's healthy. Roquan Smith, it's kind of been Danny Trevathan here, but I'm going to go Roquan. We missed Roquan at times last year, some off-the-field issues. I expect him to be back and even better. I mean, this is a top 10, a fantastic. Remember that linebacker class? Tremaine Edmonds, Roquan Smith, Rashaan Evans. Jesus, Leighton Vander Esch, that was a hell of a class, and he was a top tier in that great class for a reason. The guy can do pretty much everything. I think he's sneaky good blitzing too. That's kind of the bonus there. Kyle Fuller at corner has, early in the career, kind of known as almost a bust. I know there's some injuries, and then really turned it around. He's been a playmaker, very good at reading the quarterback. I think his supporting cast definitely helped him. Then Eddie Jackson, a little better 2 years ago. Yeah, I think he had an elite season 2 years ago. Last year was definitely solid. He had more responsibility, so it was tougher on him. I think, without Amos, it's still going to be tough to play as good as he did 2 years ago, that elite season, we'll call it. So it'd be tough to get back to there, but I think he'll be closer there than he was last year. But he's definitely getting better. A guy doesn't just decline. It's just what's around him. But then I factor back in Akeem Hicks. Hopefully he's healthy. He's healthy now. Roquan getting better. Khalil Mack getting better because of what's around him. Maybe Eddie Jackson gets more turnovers. He plays better. The Bears are number one in this category. There's no weak spot. There's some top-tier talent. I think their weakest spot would be Kyle Fuller probably, and that's a pretty good problem to have in this scenario here. So I got the Bears at one. But yeah, let me know. Everyone's going to be different with this. I love doing this video. This was a very cool video, I might say. Myself, I really like doing, creating this one and just thinking who has the group. Defensive units or defensive rankings in general, maybe they're going to be different because we're not grading 5 guys. We're grading 11 guys. Some of these teams might be missing the rest. So that'll be different. We'll rank the full 32 of defense, offense, units, players by position in the future here. A lot to get to in this offseason still. But that's going to do it. Let me know your rankings, your thoughts in the comments. Smash that like button. We'd really appreciate that. And subscribe to both channels. We can keep on grinding here. And then follow that Twitter. It's a must-follow. Updates, NFL talk, and keeping you polls and asking you guys questions, keeping you involved in the content for the future, even involving you within the videos. So check that out. Would really appreciate it. Thanks for watching this video. Goodbye.